What I'm going to talk about today is primarily our activities at the household and small commercial level to create the market for solar in San Antonio. But I also want to give a bit of an overview of where we are and how we got there. CPS Energy is our utility. For those of you who were in the general session this morning, you saw our CEO, Doyle Beneby. He came to us in August of last year and has been a total breath of fresh air. Right now there's 3 areas of solar that the utility is concentrating on. One is the large central generators. The other is larger commercial units in a feed-in tariff type program, which I won't get into today. And the third is rebates for household and small commercial installations, which is where we focus our interests. On the general central generator issues, we have already online the Blue Wing project at 16 megawatts. There's 500 kilowatts of research and development, which is 8 different solar technologies that have been installed to test how they perform in San Antonio. Sun Edison has a contract to install 30 megawatts more, which will be 3 10-megawatt installations. The utility put out an RFP for 50 megawatts, which was a very complex RFP because it called for not only the ability to build a 50-megawatt central generator, but also to bring a manufacturing plant or an assembly plant to San Antonio, to bring a research and development component, and to have an education component. When we saw that RFP, we were a little concerned that they'd set such a high bar we wouldn't see many applicants responding. But in fact, we had 111 proposals from all over the world. And the prices for the solar at the PPA were so low that they reissued the RFP for 400 megawatts to buy more over the next 5 years than they had originally intended. And the prices they were getting for solar on the PPA were basically grid parity with coal and natural gas. So San Antonio is rapidly moving to become a solar center in the nation. This is a picture of the Blue Wing project, which I have up there just to illustrate a point, and you'll see a couple of other slides like this. In this picture, well, that's my father in the middle, the nice man with the hat. That's the mayor on his right over there, and that's the staff of Solar San Antonio. We have Christine Chaplin and Andrew Wood with us today from our staff. Part of our challenge in San Antonio originally on solar was the utility was sort of dragged kicking and screaming into it. They did create a rebate, but they only put a certain amount of money in it. And they announced that that money had run out with no forewarning. And hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of projects crashed, companies went under, people got laid off. This was in January 2009. So we decided that was not a workable model for rebates. So we developed a new program, or I should say the utility developed a new program called STEP, Save for Tomorrow Energy. And what they did is they committed $850 million over 12 years for rebates for energy efficiency and solar. And there are 15 different rebates in that program, everything from windows to air conditioners to refrigerators, and the solar rebate is in there. And the assignment of a certain amount of money to each rebate is done at the beginning of the year, but that can expand or contract depending on the demand from the consumer. Their goal is to reduce energy demand by 771 megawatts over the time of this project, which is the equivalent of a new gas or coal-fired central generator. Just a few results so far this year. In fiscal year 2009 through February of 2011, we had a 221 megawatt reduction at a cost of $60 million. Solar accounted for 1.8 megawatts of that at a rebate cost of $4 million. And this fiscal year, we're already at 2.2 megawatts of solar that have been rebated. And the program has consistently achieved much higher savings or demand reduction per dollar spent than the utility originally estimated. We told them that $850 million was going to do more than 770 megawatts, and we were pretty confident that it will. One of the STEP rebates is solar. The programmatic goal for that is 6% of any given year's total budget. The rebate was recently reduced. It was at $3 an AC watt. Now it's $3 an AC watt only for schools. For other installations, it's $2.50 an AC watt up to 25 kilowatts. It drops to $1.65 above that and has a cap of $200,000. And there's a requirement now that companies doing solar installation in San Antonio be locally based. They have to have an office and a utility account in San Antonio. So it's one of the ways the utility is moving to attract companies to come into San Antonio and participate in the solar endeavor. This chart just shows how fast we're growing. The rebate in 2007, what you see is in the blue is residential and the orange is commercial. In 2007, we had a total of 5 PV installations, 2008, 17, 2009, 38, 2010 up to 157. This fiscal year, which won't end until the end of January next year, we've already got more than 250, 260 installations going in. So it's expanding very rapidly. A little bit of the background on how we've started developing our local program. The Department of Energy designated San Antonio as a Solar America City back in 2008. And as part of that program, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory came to San Antonio and conducted a poll and asked people how they felt about solar. You heard earlier how important it is to understand what the customers want and what people are thinking about. So that poll told us a number of things. It told us that 40% of the people in San Antonio asked, we're ready for solar hot water. 40% of the people asked, we're ready for solar electric. We have 1.4 million people in San Antonio, so 40% is a very large number. The problem was at that time we probably had about 5 solar hot water systems in place and maybe 30 PV systems in place. So we had a whole lot of people ready to dance and nobody on the dance floor. And the question was why? What is the barrier? And the poll gave us an answer to that too. There were 2 barriers. One was absence of information leading to lack of confidence. So people didn't know which solar company to call or what to ask for, so they were ready, but they couldn't make the commitment for lack of confidence. And the second was high upfront cost. So we designed a program to specifically respond to that polling data, which we call Bring Solar Home. What that does is offer people an opportunity to get into this field without having to know a lot or do a lot of research on their own. On our website for this campaign, a microsite, bringsolarhome.com, people come on the website, they fill out an application. They tell us what they're interested in, where they live, all those sort of things, what their usage is, and the application comes to us. We then assign 3 solar companies to that applicant. And the solar companies call, make an appointment, go out, bid for their business, answer their questions. So we've bridged that gap between the consumer and the solar industry. And we keep a sort of semi-random rotation on the solar companies, so each of them gets an equal chance to participate, and they go out and do the job. We also called in the lending institutions in San Antonio for a finance forum, and we explained to them how the solar process works in San Antonio, which is that the customer pays for the entire installation, then they get a rebate from the utility, then they can take a 30% federal tax credit. So we asked the lending institutions to design a solar loan model that took into account how the process actually worked. And we did have solar lending institutions that developed a model. The first one to step up was San Antonio Credit Union, because for the credit unions, these loans look a lot like their home improvement loans or their home equity loans, which is their bread and butter, small loans, right to their household, right to their membership. So they did step up. What happens too is we, in the first phase when we tested this program, we stayed in touch with everyone that applied. So in that first period of time, we made or fielded about 2,500 phone calls as we dealt with all the solar installers and the applicants. And this is some of our staff dealing with that. I'm going to move along a little quickly here. The essence of the loan was that the lending institution would loan for the total amount of the installation. Then the customer had the option of agreeing with the bank when the rebate was paid to give that to the bank and lower the loan by the amount of the rebate. And when the customer calculated their 30% federal tax credit that they wouldn't have to give the federal government, they could give that to the bank and lower the loan again. And the loan interest range was in the 5 to 6% range, so they were extraordinarily reasonable. This is a model. I'm not going to go into all the details. I'm going to direct your attention to the far right column, the 10-year column. We used a 5 kilowatt system costing $5.50 a watt to install. So it's a $27,500 system. After making one payment, you get the CPS Energy rebate of $11,250. So you now have a balance on your loan of $16,000. You make payments for a while, and then you calculate your federal tax credit. You apply that to the loan, and basically you end up with a loan around $10,000, $11,000. The monthly payment on that is $115. You see that on the far right column. The solar is generating $68 worth of electricity that you're benefiting, your bill's going down. So the net cost to the consumer under this loan is $47.35 a month. When we took that out into the community, and our local newspaper has been very supportive, they wrote a big article about this loan program and put this model in the paper. We had 100 calls that day from people who were, suddenly the upfront cost wasn't a barrier anymore. Can I afford 50 bucks a month to get solar, was the question. Changed the value proposition completely, and has had a tremendous impact on the availability of solar for people. These are some of the campaign results for the bank, or for us first. We had more than 1,000 applications to date. We started this program in September of last year. So basically in 1 year we've had 1,000 applications. We've got, that says 86 contracts, we're already past 90. The value of those is already past $3 million. We've added about 3/4 of a kilowatt to the distributed generation system of the utility. And we still have 120 pending proposals in front of customers. That campaign cost us about $90,000. So we invested $90,000 for a $3 million return, which most of our financial people say is pretty good. This is one of the lending institutions, their results. How many applications they have. The bottom line is they funded $300,000 worth of loans. An average loan was $22,000. The average length of the loan was a 10-year note, and it came in at about 5.75%. They are thrilled. They've set aside $2 million to keep the program going, and they'll put in more if we need it. This picture is why this program worked, is part of what I wanted to share. This picture is the day we launched the Bring Solar Home campaign. So what you see here on the left of the picture is the sustainability officer for CPS Energy. We had the full cooperation of the utility in this. The second person is the former chair of the board of CPS Energy, who now works for San Antonio Credit Union as a senior lending officer. Another senior lending officer, a county commissioner, my dad, the mayor, and me. The reason that's up there is just to demonstrate that we have the leadership cooperation to make this program go. So part of the getting over the hump for people who are thinking about the solar commitment and haven't made it is to have community leaders say to them, this is the right thing to do. We support this. We have 1,000+ megawatts of wind. We think the utility is saturated on wind. Natural gas is going to be a major player, but now we're dealing with all the fracking issues that are showing up elsewhere and the issues surfacing in Texas. So solar is really the energy of choice for the future. And I think that's why you saw the 400 megawatt, how easily they went from 50 to 400, because the utility views solar as the future. And then two things I think are important too about what Doyle Beneby has done. He's made the utilities leverage a useful tool. For example, he went to a company that produces equipment, it's hardware, software that you put on a house. It manages the energy in the house of the major energy users and can reduce energy consumption by 8 to 10%. He went to that company, he said, I want to buy 150,000 of those units and give them away to my customers to reduce demand. And I'll do that if you move your factory to San Antonio. And they said, okay. So he's using the leverage, the purchasing power of the utility to get economic development in the renewable area and the energy efficiency area. The second thing he's doing is that he's positioning the utility to be a partner in economic development, not just an energy provider. So when you saw that RFP that says you have to bring with you a manufacturing facility or an assembly plant and research and development, he wants the solar unfolding to be the driving engine for creating a green economy in San Antonio, a whole new economy. So that's the kind of visionary leadership that we have now. That's the essence of my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer questions when everybody's done. Thank you.